Pahlavi text translated by E.W. West, Part 4, Contents of the Nasks, Clareton, Oxford University Press, 1892, Dinkard, Book 8, Chapter 42, Endnotes, Verse 2, and what it is when we should probably read and about the case when, supposing that Maman stands for Madame, the reverse of what occurs in chapter 41, verse 28. Verse 3, other concealed instigations of sin, that is, when there is no evidence of the crime beyond the suspicions, real or assumed, of the accusers. And verse 1 of 43, who is a member of the community, Daham. The contradistinction here indicated between Daham and An-A'ir is an important confirmation of Geltner's definition of the Avesten Dogma as Volberger, Order, Mitglieder, see Studien zum Avesta, 1882, page 14. And verse 9, about a judge acquainted with the law for 10 years, see chapter 20, verse 74, 22, verse 2, verse 10, but for, reading Ra'i instead of law, not. And verse 13, so that, as A'ad also means where, it is rather uncertain whether the reverence is supposed to be the cause or the effect of the special provision for the mother, which afterwards becomes a source of litigation. 14, about the sin of a son. An adopted son must be. Verse 15, it would be anyone who, supposing that men stands for moon, and verse 24, how one section of the Spirit's earth is that of the people. Some neighboring nation of unbelievers is probably meant, such as the Byzantines, as we must always recollect that the compiler is summarizing the contents of the Pahlavi commentary written in Sasanian times, see chapter 1-3, and not really related, but I think of the Enochian governor names, right? 91 plus 1. I mean, if there's 92, there's really 92, right? And, you know, the extra ones that were lost to time. And, okay. 27, the good work of him who brings the dead matter. See chapter 27, verse 4. It appears from this section that the dead matter of an evil creature such as a snake or a frog was considered to pollute the water as much as that of a good creature. Verse 28, however, admits that the expediency of killing noxious creatures in the water when it is impossible to take them out beforehand, and this is in accordance with Dinkard 5, verses 35 to 38, which teaches that an apostate defiles no one when dead, any more than a dried-up frog that has been dead a year, because he defiles when living. The true was evidently intended to remove all scruples as to killing such creatures, but it applies to them only when recently killed, hence the necessity of removing them from any place liable to pollution as soon as possible after death, common sense being preferable to logical consistency. Wow. One would hope that common sense does that. not really, right? Verse 30. Where and what are the tokens of the good? Supposing that Vuk stands for coup, and okay, there's always find the footnotes is easy. 35. The perfection of that, or destroying a two-legged wolf. A term applied to an idolater, and for that letter Vuk, standing for coop. Vuk for coop in the tokens of the good. Okay. Verse 30. And 36. And also the vice of clamorous talking, Rayan Yogi, whereby the devotions are disturbed or rendered ineffectual. The Dinkard, corresponding to that beat word, the Gubyo, in the Ahunavair, according to the BP Rivayat, but it is the 20th Nask in the other Rivayats. In the Dinkard, its name is Seme Zavaris, either Gvid Shadadad or Vik Shadadad, the Avestan Data Vida Eva, law opposed to the demons in the Rivayats, is called Gud Dev Dad, Vendidad or Vindad, and is stated to consist of 22 karta, or regards the number it still contains. It is generally considered that the Vendigad, now extant, is a collection of fragments, but it is evident from the close correspondence between the author's description and the present contents that this fragmentary state of the text existed in its time, and there is every probability that any mutilation that exists in the text occurred before Sasanian times. The author, however, sometimes omits to mention subjects that are repeated, so that it is just possible that some of these repetitions are of latter date. He also makes no allusion to the 12th Gargard. And the advantage from the same production, Vendidad 1, 1, 2, following Westergaard's numbering. 2. Also the adversity which has happened to each separately, Vendidad 1, 3 to 20. Oh, the other was Vendidad 1, verse 1 and 2. And use the commas, you know. The punctuation isn't as good as I would like on this. 3. About Auharmaz disclosing the religion first among mankind to Yin. Sort of the equivalent of the Noahide laws, right? See chapter 13, verses 6 to 8. And improve the world thereby. Vendidad chapter 2, verse 1 to 19. And whatever is on the same subject. Vendidad 3, 1 to 13, 20. Chapter 2, verse 22 to 43. Verse 5, gratification has arisen. Vendidad 3, 1 to 13. Also verses 22, 23, and 20. Verses 1 to 13, verses 22, verses 23 and 34. Verse 6, to that which a dog has not seen. Vendidad chapter 3, 14, the latter clause referring to the commentary on Pahlavi Vendidad 3, 48. SP is Spentermod, right? Verse 7, on account of carrying it alone, Evako Bari Raki, Vendidad chapter 3, verse 15 to 19. As regards a corpse, the person polluted in this manner, being considered as unclean as the corpse itself, which has become polluted by another corpse. Vendidad 3, verses 20 and 21, and perhaps some commentary on Pahlavi Dinkard chapter 371, SP Spender Mod, now lost. Verse 9, and the protection of the religion thereby. Dinkard 3 verses 23 to 31. Verse 10, and the good success of mankind from the eating of it. Dinkard 3 verses 32 and 33. 11, in which the burial may be performed. Dinkard 3 36 to 40. So, you can have burial. Verse 12, for wiping away sin from human beings. Dinkard 3 verse 41 and 42. And the retribution it is important for him to make. Dinkard 4 1 to 16. Verse 14, towards those of the same religion who came forward with a request. Dinkard 4 44. 15, to occupation which occurs daily. Dinkard 4 45. Verse 16, which on account of mitro, the vestin mitro, sounds like friendly to man, and hence insisting upon the fulfillment of every promise. Mitro, he is supposed to keep on account of all breach of promise. That is sounding to me 14:3, and a mediate between the heart and soul and its accusers. See Muk 2, verse 118, in doing what he cooperates with the angels of obedience. Srosh, see chapter 9, verse 3, and justice, Rashnu, see chapter 20, verse 153, who estimates and weighs its good works and sins and decides upon its fate at the bridge of judgment. Which is an appendage to one's own soul. Dinkard 4:46 and verses 50 to 55 as well. 17, about the sin of burning firewood with which dead matter. See chapter 27, verse 4. How and when one is innocent therein. See Dinkard 5, 1 to 4. 18, for fear of dead matter having been there. Dinkard chapter 5, verse 5 to 7, but the last clause refers to a Pahlavi commentary found only in the manuscripts. Verse 19, but is owing to the demons. See Dinkard chapter 5, verses 8 and 9. Verse 20, on dead matter and the bodily refuse. See chapter 19, verse 3, of the depositories for the dead. See Dinkard chapter 5, verse 15 to 20. 21, the law opposed to the demons. The Dinkard itself. See the note for verse 1. And for cleansing as compared with other utterances. Dinkard chapter 5, verse 22 to 25. Who is in bodily contact with the corpse. Dinkard 5, 27-34. 23. Now we're in 23. Abstaining from association of a key with him. Dinkard chapter 5, verse 35 to 38. 24, and whatever's on the same subject. Dinkard chapter 5, verse 39 to 44, and the commentary on the Pahlavi Dinkard 5, 134, my sp. And 25, and whatever's on the same subject. Dinkard 8.45-46, chapter 26, that which is cleansed for 6 months, Avestin Shvas Ma'ungo, Dinkard 5:57-59, and a commentary on Pahlavi Dinkard 5:167-27, as much as a single double hem, the Pazan Dhovana, which is here assumed to be equivalent to the Persian do boon. It is probably a reading of the Pahlavi word are or in the Pahlavi Dinkard, at the Pahlavi Dinkard chapter 5, verse 169 and 172, which has been variously read as Gugan, a dirham, Duko, a spindle, or Yuko, a rag, the last of which would best suit the context here. And upon a corpse, Dinkard 5, verse 60-62, verse 28, and whatever's on the same subject, you know, about the land and all that. Dinkard chapter, Dinkard 6, 1-9, 29, and whatever's on the same subject, you know, the corpse and the water. Dinkard 6, 26-41, 30, and whatever's on the same subject. It's talking about bones and stuff. 6, 44-51, and you know, that which is for washing. Dinkard 7, 1-5, 10, 1-16. Verse 10-16 of 7 as well. Nothing is said about 7, 6-9, 17-22, which passages are merely a repetition of 5, verses 27-30, 57-62, but this omission may be owing to the fact that these passages are so abbreviated in the manuscripts as to be easily overlooked, especially by a reader of the Pahlavi version only. 32 are bringing it to fire or water through sinfulness. Dinkard chapter 7, verse 23-26. 33, the spider and the locust. Almost sounds like the title of a wedding book, right? Pahlavi, Tanand, Valmak equals Meg, evidently equivalent to the Avestin Suno, Madak, Hayauska, at Dinkard 7, verse 26, which are rendered by Tun Magok in the Pahlavi version. The identity of the Avestin Madaka with the Pahlavi Madag or Meg, the Persian Ma'ig, Malah, a locust, has long been recognized. See Dharmas Testers at Tudes, Aranes, 2, page 199. But the meaning of the Avestin Sun, the Pazan Tun, has been merely guessed to be a mosquito, the Avesta word having been transcribed as sin or sen in the prose, Sadar, so the SD is Sadar, chapter 72, verse 2, and explained by the Persian gloss Pasah, a gnat or fly by some copyists, while others read san for sin and have substituted its synonym sal, a year, or have read bis, a poisonous herb, instead of Pasah. With regard to the word Tanand, spider, in our text, it may be observed that it has descended from a much older copy of the Pahlavi Dinkard than any that could have been consulted by the author of the Sadar. It is easy to see how an original Pahlavi could have been read in Pazan by later copyists of the Dinkard. The world owing to the formation of dead matter, Dinkard chapter 7, 26-27. 34, and fodder from the dead matter, which comes upon it. Dinkard chapter 7, verse 28-35. 35, and whatever's on the same subject. You know, spiritual use of knives and stuff, right? Endnotes 7, verse 36 to 44. Verse 36, in each case separately. Endnotes 7, verses 45 to 50. You know, they're talking about places where they process the dead body. 37, the place of burial. Nikani, of corpse. Endnotes 7, verses 51, 52, 55 to 59, which refers to the tombs and mausoleums, whose da'eza, whose dista, and not to the legal dakmas, are depositories for the dead. Verses 51 and 52 are described after the others. 38, also her not feeding on the liquid of that which is watery food. Endnotes 7, verse 60, and verses 67 to 71. The contents of 7, 61 to 66 are not mentioned, being abbreviated in the manuscript as a repetition of 5, verses 46 to 51, verse 39, and which is not pronounced useless. Endnotes 7, 3, 5, 10, and the plant with which dead matter is mingled. That's why it's important to rinse off even your organic, non-manured vegetables. You know, we don't know what mushrooms or other stuff could be with it, but that's not what we're talking about. 41, about the sin of holy water being brought to water which is tainted with dead matter. Endnotes chapter 7, verse 78 and 79. 42, about the house, kano, in which a dog or a human being passes away. Endnotes chapter 8, verse 1 to 3. Verse 43, and whatever's on the same subject. You know, keeping the corpse in the house and stuff. Endnotes chapter 8, verse 4 to 25. 44, about the baseness, garas. Both these words are blotted and doubtful in the original manuscript. And the grievous sin of the decree, the giri. Both these words are blotted and doubtful in the original manuscripts. Of death, unnatural intercourse. Endnotes 8, 31 and 32. About a dry corpse which has been dead throughout the year, mentioned verse 45. Endnotes 8, verses 33 and 34. Verse 46, of an encampment, Sarayiko, or it may be Sar Aspo, a troop of horse. For the appointed fireplace, Dad Gas. Endnotes 8, verses 73 to 96. Worldly and also spiritual. Endnotes 8, verses 35 to 72, 97 to 107, 9, 1 to 39. 48, and stars alike discontentedly upon the polluted. Endnotes 9, 41. And such like 49, and such like beings, Anguni I to an, also his reward. Endnotes 9, 42 to 44. Also the sin, therefore, at the bridge of judgment. Endnotes 9, verse 47 to 57. About the triumph of Yatha Ahu Va'irio. The Ahuna Va'ir formula is so called from its first three words. See chapter 1, verse 7 note, and is smiting the fiend and healing. Vendidad chapter 9, verse 45 to 46, 10, 1 to 20, 9, 1 to 20 may probably be all alluded to in these few words, but nothing is said about the 12th Fargard. This omission is singularly in accordance with the fact that the same Fargard is omitted in all very old copies of Vendidad with the Pahlavi version, in which, although the Fargards are numbered, the 13th immediately follows the 11th. The Copenhagen manuscript, number 2, in which the 12th Fargard occurs with the Pahlavi version, is said to be a revision of the Vendidad text compiled in the last century, and other copies of the 12th Pahlavi Fargard have been derived from this revised text. The omission of this Fargard in all the old manuscripts cannot be satisfactorily explained to the loss of some folios in an older copy, because no Fargard is likely to fill exactly a certain number of folios. The loss must also have occurred very shortly after the last revision of the text in Pahlavi to account for the author of the Dinkard not finding the Pahlavi of this Fargard in the 9th century. Verse 52, and whatever's on the same subject, talking about care of dogs. My ancestors had like 6 virtues of dog raising. One was you teach the dog not to bother what is not on your property. And on 13, 1 to 28. 53, and how it is to be kept. Vendidad 13, 29 to 38, and keeping it on your property when you're not having it under control is definitely one of those things. 54, about authorizedly killing the dog wolf. Vendidad chapter 13, verse 41 to 43. 55, and diverse others of 5 descriptions. Vendidad 13, 44 to 48, which detailed the 31 particulars in which dogs resemble people, of 8 avocations, 3 of which are the professions of priests, warriors, and husbandmen. Hence the dog on the tarot card, right? 56. And the statements go con of the penalty. Vendidad chapter 13, verses 50 to 56, chapter 14, 1 to 18. 57, about the sin which gave an Iranian to foreigners, un a Irano. Vendidad chapter 15, verse 2. 58, about the sin for those 3. Reading Vol Zak 3, but it may be Vol Zak Ae for the other. So Vol Zak 1. And this sin owing to a similar sin. Oh, considering somebody... Well, if someone's in the middle of breastfeeding, is this what it means? You don't have sex with a woman during her breastfeeding? Or did they mean that a mother that's taking care of her young is somebody that you don't defile, that you don't... You know, it's even worse to violate such a person. But Vendidad 15, 8 to 16, I would agree that you both wait till breastfeeding is taking a break and, you know, the other, but never doing. But whatever's on the same subject in verse 59, the guardianship and nourishment with a child or a dog that doesn't have anybody to take care of them. Vendidad 15, 17 to 45, although the last clause may include the reminder of this Fargard. Verse 60, one has to abstain from it, you know, avoiding the blood and all that from the menstruation. Okay, Vendidad 16, 1 to 7. Vendidad 16, 1-7, also verses 13-16, and also 15, verse 7. And whatever's on the same subject, verse 61. The cleansing from the menses. Vendidad 16, 7-12. Verse 62, sexual intercourse with the menstruous woman. Vendidad 16, verse 17. 63, who have not sustained the judges. Vendidad 16:18-17:11. 64, and the sin owing to want of care, regarding your hair and your nails. Vendidad 17, 1-10, verses 16, 18, and 17, 11, not sustaining the judges. Verse 65, the apostasy of him bringing a mouth veil. The Pahlavi Padam, the Avestan Pa Ete Dana, the Bazand Panom. It consists of 2 pieces of white cotton cloth, hanging loosely from the bridge of the nose to at least 2 inches below the mouth, and tied with 2 strings at the back of the head. It must be worn by a priest whenever he approaches the sacred fire, as to prevent his breath from contaminating the fire. See Haug's Essays, page 243, note 1. A vermin killer, a Vestin Kraft Strogna, an implement for killing snakes and other noxious creatures. It may be made of any material, but a leathern whip is recommended. And various sacred twigs. A Vestin Barasman, a bundle of slender rods, formerly twigs of particular trees, but now thin metal wires, usually from 5 to 33 in number, according to the nature of the ceremony. These rods are tied together by a central girdle, passing 3 times round them and knotted just like the sacred thread girdle around the waist of a Parsi, but this girdle is formed of 6 thread-like ribbons, split out of a leaflet of the date palm and twisted together. The bundle, when properly purified, is laid upon the crescent-shaped tops of 2 adjacent metal stands, whence it is taken up by the officiating priest to hold in his left hand during certain recitations. Are a goad or scourge, the Vestin Ostra and Sraosha Karana, implements for scourging and punishing sinners and criminals, and maintains that which is necessary. Vendidad 18, 1-4. 66, so as not to accomplish his proper duty. Vendidad 18, verse 5. 67, and the approval and reward of him who does not sleep over religious observances so as to accomplish his proper duty. Vendidad 18, verse 6. So you don't intentionally stay up late and all that other stuff, and you try to figure out how to wake up for your rituals, right? Oh, did I say the Vendidad 18, verse 6? 68, wearing it, wearing the sacred thread girdle, as it were, by law. Vendidad 18, verse 8-10. 69, the great value of the Parodarsh, the foreseer of the dawn, an epithet of the domestic cock. The liberalization of the primitive temperament. Vendidad chapter 18, verse 13-17, 23-26, and also verses 28 and 29. Through righteousness for the righteous man. Pahlavi Radini Dano I Munaki Kadmon. Verse 70, when pleased and untroubled. Vendidad 18, verse 18-22, verse 26 and 27. 71, about the 4 special sins by which the fiend, the Avestendrug, is feminine, and the atonement for each separately. Vendidad 18:30-59. Verse 72, also the advantageousness of her destruction. Vendidad 18:60-65. Maybe I should come up with a commentary like this where I, sort of summarize it, but not this is the subject here, this is subject here. I'm probably going to do something else. 73, the retribution for having sex with a menstruous woman. Vendidad 18:66-67. 17, about the combat of the evil spirit, Kushishno, and whatever's on the same subject. Vendidad 19, verses 1-10. 75, the inquiry of Uharmaz, the means to confound the evil spirits, and the reply. Vendidad 19, verse 11-35. 76, also praise unto Uharmaz for his narrating the care of the clothing. Vendidad 19:20-25. 77, and whereto and how is the attainment to exaltation of him who is given it. Vendidad 19, verses 27-30. 78, the contented progress of souls of the righteous to their home. This word Mahan, Avestan, Ma'athana, has been omitted by the repairer of the manuscript when noting on his patch the words he had cut out. The throne of Uharmaz and the archangels, which is made of gold. Vendidad 19:31-32. One doesn't have to take that sort of thing too literal, but then there's expansiveness of the language that may take that away from it, from the limited sense that we may have upon hearing those words. 79, and the fear that arose among them owing to the birth of Zarathustra. Vendidad 19:33, also verses 43-47. No notice has been taken of the invocatory passage 34-42. Vendidad 19:31-32. 80, about the great powerfulness of plants of a poisonous character. Pahlavi bis, Kihar Avestan vis Kitra. For the forceful, reading Neurugik, which suits the context better than Neurangik, ritualistic. The success of the Go Kereno, Avestan Ga'o Kerena, a mythical tree or plant supposed to grow in the ocean, where it is guarded by 10 enormous fish, and at the time of the renovation of the universe, the elixir of immortality is expected to be prepared from its twigs mingled with the fat of a mythical ox. See Bundehes 9:6, 17 1-6, 27 4, 30 25. That was the Gorica plant, which is the white home in curing as compared with other plants, and the diligence of Irman. Avestan Yaman, a spirit whose powers of healing, chiefly by spells, are celebrated in the Vendidad 22, and who is invoked in Yasna 54, a spell that concludes the recitation of the Gathas. Isn't there something about that name and Mars? But sometimes the war entities were the ones that knew how to heal, or were referred to that anyways. And the medical treatment of the world. Vendidad 20, verse 1 to 12. 81. And the great powerfulness of the Irman supplication. The Iryama Ishyo Yasna 54, or invocation of Iryaman, quoted in Vendidad 20, verse 11, 21, verse 20, 22, verse 23. The Ahunavair, see chapter 1:7. The other Gothic Avesta, Yasna 46:7 and 44, verse 16. To E, which are quoted after the other spells of each of the last 3 Fargards of the Vendidad, for restraining the demons from destroying the world of righteousness. Vendidad chapter 22, 1 to 25, 20, verse 13 to 15, 21, verse 18 to 23, and probably the rest of 21. On the 3 divisions, Hadok, as it, okay, the Hadok, corresponding to the 20th word, Dadad, in the Ahunavair, according to B.P. Riv, but it is the 21st and the last, Nasks. In other Rivayats, its name occurs in the Avesta in the form Havaokta, and is called Hadukt in the Rivayats, which also state that it contained 30 Karda, or Fargards, which differs considerably from the numbers stated in this chapter. Yasts 21 and 22 are traditionally supposed to belong to the Hadokt, but there's hardly a trace of either of them in this chapter. Yast 11 is also distinguished by the same title, as it exists in 133 sections. The first is of 13 sections, as the total of the 13 plus 102 plus 19 sections mentioned in verse 1, 11, and 13 is 134 instead of 133. There must be an error in one of the 4 numbers given in the manuscript, but the clerical error can hardly have been made in writing 19 and is unlikely in 102, but 133 may possibly stand for an original 134. Though the writing of 13 instead of 12 is more probable, the Rivayats give no assistance in settling this question, as they all divide the Nasks into 30 Karda. On the whole, it will be safest to read 12 instead of 13 until some better authority becomes available. And contains particulars about the nature and recital of the Ahunavair. Is that thing where you recite it a certain number of times for this type of occasion and in place of this other passage? And well, I'll have to do a program on that, don't I? Compare Yast 11:3 and whatever's on the same subject of spiritual benefit. It is just possible that this may refer to Yast 21, which, though specially alluding to the recitation of Eshembohu, or praise of righteousness, also mentions that of the Ahunavair in its 4th verse. With regard, however, to Yast 22, there seems no possibility of identifying its text with any portion of the Hadokt Nask as described in the chapter. 4. About the duties and the 5 periods of the day. See chapter 29, verse 9. And the bridge judgment of him who shouts out regarding Bara Dra Yedo, but it may be Bara Givra Yedo, the zealous. Okay, duty in the 5. And the ceremony of the seasonal festival, reading chapter 7:1. did I say 29:9 in regards to the 5 periods? I'll make sure I got everything. Verse 10, every precedence. I've been getting attacked by a bunch of different bugs, so, assuming that Pesagi stands for Pesagi, leadership, foresight, assuming that Pes, Vonaki, stands for Pes, Venaki, and chapter 46, the Gathas of the Yas. Corresponding to the 21st word, Vastarem, in the Ahuna Ba'ir, according to BP Rev, but it is the first Nask in other Rivayats. In chapter 1, verse 9 and 12, it is called Stod Yast, praise ritual, Avestin Staota, Yestnya, and Studyast, or Yast, in the Rivayats, which also state that it contains 33 Karda, or Sarat. In Shayast Lashayast, chapter 13, verse 1, we are told that Visae ve Amesha Spenta, Yasna 14.1, is the beginning of the Stotan Yasna. And if we look for its end, we find Yasna 58 and 59, both ending with special reverence of the whole collection of these Stotan Yasnan. We may, therefore, conclude that Yasna 14 to 59, with its supplementary passages in Visparad, chapter 5 to 24, contains the whole of the Stod Yast. But from this we must deduct Yasna 19 to 21, which are the first 3 Fargards of the Bako Nask, Yasna 52, which is an interpolation, and Yasna 56 and 57, which are the Srosh Yasts. Lesser and greater, we must also consider the Yasna Hapang Aete as a single section, in accordance with its treatment in Book 9, Chapter 12, and Chapter 35, and Chapter 57, and much of the Visparad may not belong to the primitive text mentioned in verse 3, making these necessary deductions, as we have exactly 33 has of the Yasna left for the Stod Yast, as stated in the Rivayats. And in the compass, Parvastari, this word can also be read Fravistari, Avestin, Fravid interpretation are Frostari, handing down. Verse 2, the word Ahu. The Ahuna Ba'ir begins with the words Yatha Ahu Ba'irya. The word Ahu in the manuscript is written Ahi, as usual in Iran. Of the beginning, assuming that Bara stands for boon, is of a like kind with the Ahya. The first Gatha, our sacred hymn, begins with the words Ahya Yasa Namanga, Yasna 28, verse 1. There is, of course, no connection but that of the sound between Ahu, a spiritual lord, and Ahya, of this, nor is there any other between the concluding words Vastarem, a protector, and Vahyo, better, though the phrases in which these latter occur are of a very similar character, which fully justifies the comparison made in the text, which is Vastarem. The Ahuna Ba'ir ends with the words Yim, Dragubio, Dadat, Vastarem. is of a like kind with Vahyo. The last Gatha ends with the words Ya, Erez Hagioe, Dahi, Drigaove, Vahyo. Yasna 53, verse 9. The Gathas apparently are referenced by the stored up of our Gudo compendium, verse 3. Likewise, in the purport, Avori Hastan are Avar Gastan disseminations of its verse, Ga, and the particulars of the primitive Visperad. The Visperad service consists of the Yasna ritual with certain additional passages intermixed, which passages are called the Visperad because the earlier ones invoke all the chiefs. Vispa, Ratavo, Visperad 2-3 of creation. Yasna 55 may be referenced by the mention of the blessing. And verse 4, all three are provisions for the first and last presentations. Oh, hold on, I messed that. So we're probably referring to the Yasna 14 and 58. And the blessing, Yasna 55, Visperad, Avar Gastan, Avori Hastan, Visperad. The Visperad service contains of the Yasna ritual certain additional passages intermixed, which passages are called the Visperad because the early ones invoke all the chiefs. Vispa, Ratavo, Visperad, chapter 2, verse 3. Well, it's important to have rituals that kind of either go over all the scripture or can be used to go through different parts. Like we say this part, this one time you do the ritual, the other time you do the ritual.